By the end of this video, you're going to have a fully functional view or impression counter inside of your own Bubble app. So in simple terms, you're just going to be able to count every single time a user views a particular page or a piece of content inside of your app. This is an essential feature if you're creating any type of social media app and you want to be able to keep account of how many views a post has received. Now look, there is a little bit involved within this process, so I'm going to hand this one over to Matt and he's going to explain absolutely everything you need to know.
Hey guys, so today we are going to create a Bubble tutorial on how to count impressions or views on a specific page. So this would work on something like Instagram, where you have a photo and you would scroll up and down the page, and then on the back end on Instagram side, they would be able to have the view count. So it would look something like this, where you have an image on a page, and then you can see the view count at the bottom here. So let me quickly just refresh. So as you can see, it has 8 views as I've just loaded. This one has 1 and 6. So now as I scroll away from the image, as it goes out of my viewport, the number then increases. So this would indicate that someone has loaded the page, scrolled past the image, and would therefore count as an impression. Okay, cool. So let's look at what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to go and create that basic design. In that design, we'll have a repeating group, a group within that, an image within that, and then also some text. And then the most important part of that is a specific plugin called the on-screen detector. Then we're going to set up the rest of the database fields for the views, and then create the database triggers and also the workflow triggers. So let's get started. So we're going to go to our page, and here we're going to go Control A and delete. So let's start with a text heading for the page. We'll go to layout, put that in the middle, make it bold, a little bit bigger for this thing, and then say impressions / view counter. Cool. Let's add a little bit of padding on the top there to give it some space. Awesome. So now the first element we're going to add into this page is going to be a repeating group. So now you can see those 4 blocks. We're going to throw that into the middle. I'm going to go to this min width. I'm going to say 400. This always depends on your styling for your app. So we're going to say minimum 400 fit width to the content, rows 4, columns 1, and we haven't created our data just yet. So now we have our repeating group. Let's quickly add a bit of thing. Cool. So now within this repeating group, we need to create an image element. So in order to do that, we're going to type over here group. We're going to drag this group into the first cell of the repeating group. So whilst we set this up, it's always a little bit easier to change the background color so you can see a sub element within its parent. So let's go and make that like that. Cool. And now on this group A, we're going to call this group view, just so we can reference it a little bit later. And now in this group view, I'm going to go to the width, and we're going to say minimum 300, and its height, we're also going to say minimum 300. Cool. And then in this box, we're going to add a little bit of margin on the top and the bottom. So we're just going to put 100. This will be just to add a bit of space between the image elements so you can test your counter is working. So now we have repeating group, and now we need to add in the image element. So we're going to type image, and we're going to drag the image into there, and we can put that in the center. And then the last element we need to put in is a text element. Okay, we'll center that. And what we're going to type here so long is views. Okay, so now let's quickly preview and look at our design of the page. Okay, so because there's no data in the repeating group, it shows up empty. But there we go. So we have our box. So let's go make that look a little bit better. So on the main repeating group, we're going to go over here to separators. We're going to say none. We're then going to go to the group view, and we're going to add a solid border, and then add some roundness. Cool. And then a shadow style, we can add an outset. And we're going to go 4, 4, 8, and 0. Okay, cool. So that should give us a nice little bit of styling for that box. Now let's go and update this back to white so it looks nice. Cool. So now we have created our image element on the page. So now we need to go and install the on-screen detector plugin. So we're going to go to our left, we go to plugins, and this is it here called viewport detector. Okay, so we would go to add plugins and type in viewport detector, and this one over here. Cool, so now we have that installed. We can scroll down a little bit and see how exactly we call this in our workflows. So over here underneath the plugin content, it says the elements, the viewport detector, and events, a viewport detect enter screen, a viewport detect exit screen. So now we have our design kind of set up and also the thing we're going to use to trigger the counts. So now let's go and set up the database fields. So I'm going to delete that. And now we're going to create a type called posts. Okay, so these are going to be an image post. So I'll create the post. Now within that post, I need to create an image type. And the field type for this will be basic type image. We go create. Now associated with that image will be the view count. And this is just going to be a number. Cool. So you can add extra information in this, like image ID, all depending on what information you need to report on into your own bubble system. Cool. So now we have our basic data type, and now we need to go add a little bit of information into our database within these data types. Okay, so we're going to go over here. We're going to go to all posts, and then we're going to say new entry, and all we're going to do is just upload an image. So I'll create this one. Cool. Don't need to add in anything else there. And we'll add 2 more photos just so we have the ability to scroll up and down. Cool. And the last item. It did. Cool. Okay, cool. So now we have 3 images in our database and our data fields are set up. So you can click this. We've created image itself. The image ID is optional, and then the view count we've also created, which is mandatory. Okay, so now we have all the basic things set up. Now we need to go into our workflow and trigger everything. But before we actually do the workflows, we need to go into the page itself and set up for the correct data to be displayed. Cool. So we go back to our design, and now in this page, it currently references nothing. So we need to go all the way to the top level, which is our repeating group A. In this type of content, we're going to look for our one we just created, which is posts. Data source is going to be do a search for posts, because we are referencing all of the posts in our database. We're not going to add a constraint. It's just going to filter everything. Cool. So now the repeating group has its data source. So now we need to link the children of that source. So we go to the group, type of content, posts. Data source is going to be current cells post. Awesome. And then now we go one level lower into the image. And the image is going to be parent groups post image. Cool. So the image will now show up for that repeating group. And now the bottom element, before we quickly go and update its logic, we're going to add a bit of styling. Okay, add 25 top margin, and then we're going to go to the text. So currently it says views, but now we need to reference the database for the specific image and pull its view count. So we're going to go to insert dynamic data, parent groups posts, and we're going to go to the view count. And now that would pull the number as it is. So we want to go and say formatted as a number, and then add a small little phrase at the end that says defaulting to 0. Okay, so now we have our database linked to our front end and the elements are showing. Now the last step we have to do is create the workflow that triggers the impressions or the views. So before we can actually go and trigger that, we need to go to the left and we're going to type in detector. So we're going to see viewport detector on the left. So we're going to drag that and we're going to drag it underneath into this group view. So it's very important where you place this. It needs to be within the group that contains the image, not within the repeating group above or below. It needs to go into this group view. So let's go see if it's in that there. Perfect. So now that we have our detector within our page, we can call it in our workflows. So let's go to the workflow. So we're going to create a new folder or a new event, and this is going to start with an element action. So we go to elements, a viewport detect exits screen. So we're going to click that. Cool. Viewport detect A. Yes. And now we're going to add a step to that. And that is going to be make changes to a thing. Now the thing we're going to change is the parents groups post. Now within that, we need to go to the view count. And here we are going to say parents groups post view count plus 1. Cool. So this means as soon as you look at an image and it scrolls out of the screen, it's going to trigger the workflow and then add 1 to the current count. All right, so let's see what I added some extra text in there somehow. Cool. So those are all our elements. Let's go and have a look and see how this all works. Okay, so here we have our first image and it says views 0, views 0, views 0, and views 1. Okay, so as you can see, as you scroll away or the image is out of the screen, it adds a number to the count. So let's scroll up and down one more time. Awesome. So there are a few constraints you can put onto this in terms of only counting a single user, and this would be through creating something like a session ID within the page that references if it's been counted. So that is a little bit more complicated, but this is the basic way in which you can count the impressions on items within a repeating group. So you could have 600 items in your database that you display with a repeating group. Only once a user looks at them or engages with them and scrolls away does it then trigger the count. So hopefully you guys found this useful in your next build, and all the best.
And just like that, you now have a fully working impression counter within your own Bubble app. As you can see, it's never been easier to build something like this without having to write a single line of code using Bubble's tool. Look, if you found this video useful and you wanted to stay up to date with any additional Bubble resources I share, I'd always recommend hitting that subscribe button on my channel. For now though, I just want to say a huge thank you for watching this specific video, and I wish you all of the best on your own no-code journey.